My name is Charles Allen Ward. I was born February 27th, 1980. I was born at Washington Regional Medical Center in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I grew up at Wesley, there in Madison County. Went to school in Huntsville up until my junior year, where I attended Elkins High School in Elkins. Soon after graduation, I'd left and went in the service. I was 8 years at Navy CB. After that, kind of self-employed and working for family members in Texas. I moved back to Arkansas, again self-employed, building fences and whatnot like that. Soon after, I hired on at the county. I started in as a brush hog operator and then just progressively moved up.
Well, talk about what it was like when you came to work here. Who were your boss and what did you do?
When I was hired on under Donnie and Sean. It'd be Donnie Coleman and Sean Schrum. And like I'd mentioned before, I hired on as a brush hog operator. And then from that point on, I moved into doing the, the parts manager. Then after that, I went back to school at the NWAC College up here, it was actually in Springdale. During that time, I'd actually switched, and to keep my time going with the county, was working janitorial for the courthouse. After graduation, I came back to the road department where they rehired me as a grader operator. I did that for a while, and they had a supervisor position come open. I applied for the supervisor position and got it. Maintained the supervisor position for about 5 years. And then at that time, Sean had resigned, and I applied for the assistant road superintendent position and got it again. Soon after that, Donnie had resigned, and then that's when I moved up to the road superintendent.
What do y'all do? If someone said, what does the road department do? I don't understand. What would you tell them?
The road department's here for the public. We're maintaining safety, keeping the roads in conditions that the traffic can travel safely, that the industry, chicken industry, hog industry, farmers, anything of that nature can travel these roads back and forth.
People tend to think of road departments as city. What's the difference between the county road department and the city road department?
The city street department is maintaining curb and gutter systems, mostly asphalt. Some of our smaller cities you see dirt roads, but with the county we have almost majority dirt roads to maintain, so you have a constant maintenance issue, and we're constantly trying to convert those to paved roads, but it's a slow process with maintaining the system you have now and trying to expand it.
Talk about the challenge you face with miles and miles of road and limited money.
Well, you just have to do what you can. We set priorities. If you've got heavy traffic where the roads are seeing more deterioration, we try to concentrate on those areas. If we see extraordinary growth where subdivisions and things like that are starting to come into play, we try to concentrate on those roads as far as upgrading.
How has the growth of Northwest Arkansas, especially the residential growth out in the rural areas, how has that put a strain on this department, if it has?
It does, financially and also with damage and wear and tear on roads. The Northwest Arkansas seems to be exploding right now. I mean, there's people moving in, they're building subdivisions on dirt roads. I mean, they're starting to build out larger companies, commercial companies in the county, which is reflecting heavier traffic on our roads.
Talk about the county judges you've worked with. Who have you worked with and what has it been like?
When I hired in, I was barely under Judge Hutton. It was just as Judge Hutton was starting to transition out. And then Marilyn Edwards was elected, and I'd served all through her term, or well, through majority of her term. And then Joseph Wood being elected up to current.
If someone asks you, what are the challenges you face right now, besides obviously miles of roads and money, but put it in your own words, what is the challenge going into the future?
The challenges are trying to get finances to maintain the roads the way they need to be maintained and to increase the infrastructure. Also, employee base. Construction market in this area is increased dramatically. We're not being able to provide the finances to our employees to give them a reason to stay. So when they get offered a higher price, they're wanting to walk on us. At the end of the day, it's financial. You know, trying to get the funding to continue progress.
Talk about the ways that you serve the public. We serve the public by doing what?
The road department serves the public by, like I say, maintaining the roads, trying to make it safe to travel. Also in flood events, emergency events, we block roads, try to deter residents from traveling through those areas. We repair as quickly as possible those areas that are damaged. We maintain bridges, which is a major impact. A lot of times residents don't realize the danger of crossing a bridge. They just assume that the bridge is safe to cross. So keeping the maintenance up and inspections up on our bridges.
Were you here during the ice storm? And if you were, tell me about the ice storm. How did that affect your department?
The ice storm was tragic and dramatic. Fortunately, we'd had reserves and finances, and we had laborers that were willing to work, and we were able to maintain and clean up that disaster with our own employees without having to contract that. But we had massive devastation across the board. Pretty much every road was impassable at some point, and we just had to start making our way through.
What have I forgot to ask you about that I should? I mean, what are some things that stand out in your memory about working here?
Change at this point. We're going through a major transition right now, restructuring how we do business in the road department, trying to get more efficient with the things that we're doing. I think once we get through that development stage, things will start smoothing out. The workload and the project load and the demand that everyone is wanting, including the citizens, is increasing every year.
Talk about the switch, what you know of it, from the old yard to the new yard, and when about that happened and how that impacted the department.
Okay, with the Gregg Street location, I wasn't currently employed with the county, but from what I understand historically from the employees that are still employed with us now that moved over, they had terrible conditions there, to include holes in the walls and things like that. Moving to this location was a major upgrade for Washington County. Our shop facility is, I would say, one of the better ones in Arkansas, if not the best one in Arkansas. We've got great skilled mechanics on board. It's just a good place central location to maintain the conditions for the citizens.
What about the bridges? I know that's a huge part of the job. How hard is it to keep up with the bridges, and how important is it?
Dealing with bridges is very important, and we have actually, this is in our third year of owning a bridge inspection truck. We're one of the only counties, I think, in the state of Arkansas that actually own one. That makes those repairs much easier and much more efficient. But it's a top priority to maintain bridges.
Were you involved in the Willie project? And if you were, tell me about it.
I was employed with the county when the Willie Bridge was installed, but I was not involved with the construction. However, it was a great upgrade. The bridge that was there before, I understood it as being essentially a dam or a gateway for the water system, and we were utilizing it as a bridge. you couldn't cross it with a big truck, then you could barely cross it with a motor grader. The new bridge definitely has made a big impact on that community.
Have you dealt with any of the JPs, and if so, what were they like?
I've dealt with majority of the JPs, maybe not on a one-on-one basis. I think the main ones that I deal with daily is Busch and Harvestin and Harvey Bowman. Those are the main ones that JP Maxwell, even they were the major. They were in control of the majority of the maintenance areas that were actually county roads, and they were very interested and motivated for the road department to be working in their districts.
Tell me about Busch Pond and Ann, for example. What do they like and what do they want from you?
Busch Pond is, in my opinion, a great JP. He really cares about his citizens, or his, how they call them, constituents. I get reminded. He's always fighting for them. If they call him with concerns, he's always coming forward with me to try to get it resolved, as simple as a pothole to as severe as, can I get my road paved? He's very supportive of the road department too.
What about Ann and some of the others?
Ann Harvestin, exactly the same. She's very concerned and very motivated and very involved with the road department, with her district and her constituents also. JP Maxwell in his district was the same way. Some of the newer JPs that are on board now, I haven't got a personal relationship, but from what we can see as it stands, it looks like they're all very supportive.
What about people dealing with the public?
Okay, phone calls can be very dramatic. We get a massive amount of phone calls into this office, and it's sometimes, hey, you guys done a fantastic job, we really appreciate the work. Majority of the time it's, I've got a pothole and this road is the worst I've ever seen it. Trying to negotiate through what's a real problem and what's an I want and I need can be frustrating, because we can't get to all of them all at once. We have added some staff members at the road department. We actually added a new assistant office manager to try to help us mitigate that, if you will, to where we can help more people more efficiently, to where they can feel we can have more time with them when they call.
If someone came to you and said, tell me about Washington County, then someone who'd never been here said, what would you tell them about, what's Washington County like? What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, I love Washington County. I actually grew up in Madison County, but it was barely bordering. We spent majority of our time in Washington County. We come to Washington County for our goods and everything. I currently live in Washington County off of Mount Olive Road in Elkins. It's a beautiful part of the world. I've been all over the world, to Sicily, Guam, Puerto Rico, Okinawa, I mean, Spain, but this is where I call home, and this is probably, every time I've been across the seas, I'm always anxious to get back home.
What about some of the guys that came before you? Brink, Duvall, Shrum, all those guys, any stories on them?
Well, Jimmy Brink, as far as stories, mostly it was after the fact, and he calls me on a regular basis. You know, he's got his concerns, but main thing is coffee shop with Brink. He likes to coffee shop there at Elkins, and we go in, and he's like, hey, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that, and why are you doing this way or that way? He's a very knowledgeable individual, I think. DeVault, I really didn't know that well, and I rarely have contact with him, but he was a very direct individual, best I can recall. Sean Shrum and Donnie Coleman were before me, and I appreciated the time that they gave with me to help me get to where I am now.